very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 218th episode of the Together for Education webinars brought to you by Notebook. As we proudly completed our 200th episode early this year, remembering our journey, it was back in 2020 when we here at Notebook decided to launch a platform for the educators to connect meaningfully on discussing problems they are facing with the rising need of digital education and online learning and arrive at common solutions. Little did we know that day about this platform growing so big, where principals and educators from across the length and breadth of our country have participated over so many sessions. We thank you all once again for supporting us and would look forward to your gracious presence in all our upcoming episodes. We have discussed extremely vibrant and relevant topics here, like digital learning, NEP and assessment, extracurricular topics like sports and theatre, topics like school finance and management, and even evolved topics like child psychology. Our today's topic is communicating with tact and diplomacy. Communication is a very important aspect in the developmental stages of a child and also in his adulthood. How do we teach our children the effective ways to communicate? Let's hear from the experts today. Our first speaker on this topic is Mr. Philip Burrett. Mr. Burrett retired as the Deputy Headmaster from the illustrious Doon School in Dehradun after 44 years of serving in education across various institutions. Mr. Burrett served the Doon School as Housemaster, Head of Department, Dean of Activities, Dean of Student Welfare, Deputy Headmaster, Second Pastor, and Acting Headmaster with great distinction. He also carried out a visioning exercise for the Doon School in the year 2011 through an in-depth study of a number of British public schools and various schools in the US. Mr. Burrett qualified as a leadership trainer at the Wellington College, UK in the year 2000. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. He's also an adventurer, a naturalist, and also an athlete. And we here at Notebook are privileged to have Mr. Burrett as our senior advisor. Sir, a very good evening. Thank you so much for being here today, and over to you, please.
Thank you so much, Gagori. I hope I am audible. And thank you very much for that introduction, and a very good evening to all of you at Notebook, and especially Achin and you, and also our esteemed panelists and our guests who've tuned in. An interesting topic. I was looking at the meanings of these two words. Tact is the ability to assert your ideas and opinions, knowing what to say and how to say it without damaging the relationship by causing offense. Tact is also the art of making a point without making an enemy. Tact may be described as the ability to convey something without hurting another, to pick the right time and the right place to communicate, and to keep in focus what has to be conveyed without getting personal or hurting another's feelings. Diplomacy, on the other hand, is the art of letting someone else have your way. Diplomacy is the art and science of maintaining peaceful relationships between nations, groups, or individuals. Very often, diplomacy refers to representatives of different groups discussing such issues as conflict, trade, and environment, technology, or maintaining security. In a one-to-one setup, it would mean making the other see your way of doing things in a way that the other party accepts it and feels important. As a teacher, I've seen friendships destroyed, relationships ruined, staff become unhappy, and children hurt, and heads of schools become unpopular because the communication has been tactless and undiplomatic. In our lives as teachers, and even outside the field of education, we are continuously meeting and having to deal with people. As teachers, we are in constant touch with our colleagues, with our principals, our management boards, our parents, students, alumni, guests, visitors, etc. And so a lot of our success, popularity, and effectiveness does depend on how we treat and handle people. It is said that people remember not what you did for them or how well your classes went, but how you made them feel. In my opinion, we can get anything we want and we can put our view across, no matter how unsavory and unpleasant, if we communicate it in the right way. Far too many people get hurt and friendships broken because, and messages are, misunderstood because of course, our lack of tact and diplomacy. As a teacher and colleague, I have often had to have very difficult conversations with parents, colleagues, and students. These confrontations are not easy, but I always believe in two things: focus on the act and behavior and not on the person. In other words, being objective and dealing with the person and not the problem and not the person. For example, telling a child that the work was untidy and careless without labeling the child as sloppy and disrespectful. So you can say that I did not like your work, I think you could do better, rather than say you are sloppy and you are careless. The first way deals with the work, and the second labels a child and leads to humiliation and hurt. Also with colleagues, I always say in advance that this is not an easy conversation for me. And I too have made mistakes, but what I am doing is a part of my job. And this is going to be helpful for both you and the institution. There is no such thing as criticism. Everything is feedback. And feedback is very essential if we want to improve as a society, as an individual, as a school. And when you do feedback, I think feedback in schools is done on two things. One is a personal feedback on things like dress, behavior, language, irregularities, punctuality. The other feedback is professional feedback. Are they covering their syllabus? Are the books, corrected? How are they dealing with discipline problems? And also, tactful feedback is always given not to embarrass or put people down, and should never be done publicly. I think we should respect the other by speaking at an appropriate place and time, and when people are ready to receive it. Children learn from what they see us do. How we treat our colleagues in school, how a headmaster or a principal treats the staff is also picked up by the students. I have had to expel students, tell colleagues that they have to resign over something that was gravely wrong. Or I've even had to ask colleagues or tell colleagues that their extension has not been granted. And this all has to be done with tact, kindness, and diplomacy. And let me tell you, this is not easy. Especially in India, where the dividing line between personal and professional relationships is very blurred. Abroad, I have seen that you can have personal friends and yet you can have professional disagreements. But in India, it's very blurred. Your best friend it's very difficult to tick him off and tell him something that he's gone wrong with. And in one such case, I had to tell a colleague who was senior to me in age and in experience, because I was in a higher position than him in school, that his services had to be terminated. It was very, very unpleasant. And I had to ask him what I could do to make his departure easy. Of course, he did say that it would be a financial loss and he would stand to lose 2 years of salary. So I even went as far as the board and we got him what he wanted. So tactfully, I got what the school wanted, but he got what he wanted. So what we did was we went for a win-win situation. I think it is not useful to the individual as well as the institution to shy away from these difficult conversations. But with kindness, we can communicate whatever we want and get what we want. I think before any conversation, we have to take time out to organize what we have to say. We have to go through what we are going to communicate. We can't just do it without any rehearsal. The second is it's got to be a two-way communication. We speak, but we have to also allow the other person to ask genuine questions, to acknowledge what he has or she has to say. Third is I think we have to be open to different perspectives and respect the other's rights and opinions, to let people know that they can challenge or disagree with what we are saying and to have an interaction, okay? And without it escalating into a conflict. Also, I think it's important to differentiate perception and perspective. Perception is how I see it. Perception is seeing it from the other's point of view. That's very important. Also, I think we need to know who we are speaking to. We need to know our audience. We need to use sensitive language. We need to know the person we are speaking to. Some people are very sensitive. Some people aren't. Some people can take it the way it is. And I think lastly, we must not shy away from these difficult conversations, because the longer you wait to have it, the more difficult the situation becomes. Uh, it can build up anxiety, and it doesn't make our job or the other person's job easier. Another word of advice is that we need to be empathetic. When we are talking to someone at the receiving end, we have to also see what he is struggling with. We have to pause to gather our thoughts together and how he is receiving the message. We also have to use I statements and not you statements. You statements is directed at the person. I statements is how I see it. A huge part of what differentiates constructive and critical feedback is this, because we've provided some example. The example I provided was, I think that your essay is not good, not your essay is useless. And we need to stick to the facts. When we communicate tactfully with people, we need to know what we are saying, why we are saying it, and then go on further for that. I think with that, Gogori, I want to say that I hope I've started the ball rolling, and I look forward to the comments of our esteemed panel. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much for those wonderful inputs. We would move on to our next speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker on this topic is Mr. Achin Bhattacharyya, CEO and founder at Notebook. A chartered accountant by training, Achin was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. He has worked in India and abroad in various senior capacities in GE, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. Achin is a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of England and Wales, a fellow of the ICAI, a member of CP Australia and CP Ireland, and also a member of SEMA UK. He is also the recipient of the prestigious Indian Achievers Award. An avid reader and a passionate traveler, Achin has keen interest in economics, history, literature, and philosophy. He's a regular speaker at various forums and chambers of commerce, and also contributes articles to numerous publications regularly. He is also on the board of some of the most renowned corporates and contributes significantly to their brand strategies. Achin, a very good evening. And over to you, please.
Good evening, everyone. Gaur, am I audible?
Absolutely.
I once again welcome all of you to today's session. Let me start with a very interesting and witty quote by renowned Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, who once said, "Respond intelligently even to unintelligent treatment." We would all agree that art of communication is perhaps one of the most important skills in the journey of life. So naturally, how we say something is as important as what we say. Even if we take a more holistic approach and look at things from a broader context, broader geopolitical context, any conflict, be it an economic blockade or an armed conflict, is always the last option, last resort, and undoubtedly not the most desirable option, given the consequences, given the price that we have to pay for it, through loss of precious resources, including human lives. However, a warlike situation arises only when diplomatic efforts fail. Hence, the importance of tact and diplomacy is beyond doubt. It's all encompassing. The way I look at it, to me, tact is the ability to tell the truth, nothing but the truth. But in a way in which we do consider the other person's feelings and reaction, not to hurt him or her. It allows us to initiate a difficult conversation, communicate sensitive information, and put across the message, and even preserve the relationship. And hence, there are many things which comes into play, be it emotional intelligence, be it respect, be it self-awareness, thoughtfulness, compassion, so important, honesty, most important. And naturally, things like courtesy or being subtle or diplomacy naturally follows. Now, hence, when we look at today's youngsters, we look at young children who are getting ready for the race of life, for the journey of life, it is very important to teach them as to how to communicate without hurting the feelings of the other person, how to be sensitive, but yet be able to put across their perspective. How to deliver a bad news, provide a critical feedback. Now, be it in a personal or a professional situation, be it at home or outside home. And naturally, such traits help us build our reputation and credibility. For instance, preserving an existing relationship, it's so important, but it's like a beautiful example of a win-win situation and preserving the relationship. And it also shows aspects like maturity, professionalism, integrity. Again, single most important factor. The way I look at it, the first thing that comes in is honesty and integrity. And tact naturally is a way in which we can communicate the right information without diluting it, without misleading the other person, but in a way in which is sensitive enough. Hence, it also demonstrates good manners. So it's very important for youngsters to learn to communicate with grace and consideration, which will make them stand out in the crowd, get noticed for the right reasons, lead to career opportunities in future, leadership roles, and very important, help us avoid conflict, respect the divergence, respect the difference, inculcate the maturity in which in a conversation we can agree to disagree, yet shake hands, finding common ground, and even allowing the other person to save his or her face, even if he or she is wrong, but allowing the other person an honorable exit. Hence, I think it's a very important asset in any negotiation, in any conflict resolution. The other thing which we should remember is tact is very strongly influenced by culture. In certain cultures, what might be seen as open, fair feedback, in some other more conservative cultures, it might be seen as profoundly rude. Hence, we need to be culturally alert and sensitive when providing feedback. Very important to place ourselves in the shoes of the other person. If we are providing feedback to a person from a different background, very important to be culturally sensitive. The other aspect is that it's important to be tactful, to be diplomatic. However, we also need to get our message across and ensure that our own rights are respected. We need to handle issues assertively, not submissively. Being tactful doesn't mean being submissive or being dishonest. It means being completely honest, being assertive. And respect has to be mutual. So how do we develop tact? I think very important is the environment. Thinking before we speak. For instance, simple things like practicing active listening. When others speak, using tools like empathy, emotional intelligence to be able to connect with the other person, seeing things from their perspective, building trust, building those blocks of trust, so that the other person knows that our intentions are completely honest and compassionate. We might be initiating a difficult conversation. We might be giving a critical feedback, but the intentions are honest. The other aspect, of course, is determining the appropriate time, because tact also means saying the right thing at the right time and considering the situation from a 360-degree before we speak, being discreet, ensuring that we are conscious of who we are with, where we are before speaking out, because information might be sensitive. It might hurt the other person's feelings. It might be a personal information which might have come to our possession, considering the relationship or considering the position. Choosing words carefully. Same information can be conveyed in different ways. And especially when we are making a tense conversation, an argument, choice of words can be very important. And this is where I think it is very important role of parents, educators, etc. Teaching children. Also to be concise. At times it's very tempting to keep talking, especially when we feel uncomfortable. But the fact is that it also increases the chance that we end up saying too much or saying something which at a later point of time we might not be happy about it. We might regret. So being honest and assertive and focused, say only what we need to say. The other important aspect is watching our body language, because a large part of communication is non-verbal. And if we are honest, our body language will match our message. There'll be a natural sync. And it will appear open, transparent when we are communicating. The other aspect which I think is very important is not to react emotionally. Now, it's very hard to communicate tactfully when we feel angry or upset. Naturally, we are disturbed. So it's important to first give ourselves time to take a deep breath, maybe go for a walk, calm down before we respond. So learning how to control our emotions in a difficult situation, how not to shy away from a difficult conversation, but at the same time, not to lose our composure. I think that's the art. Now, whether that be practicing deep breathing techniques, meditation, regaining our composure. So it's very important to understand people, issues, words, situations. Because at the end of the day, we need to look at things from a more holistic perspective, not only at an individual issue, but the entire situation as such, so as to ensure that we make a more informed judgment. Now, we live in a great nation with tradition of diplomacy, of implementing extroversive interests. And it has been continuing since times immemorial. Concept of strategic culture. Even if you look at epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata, they can be great examples of institutions of diplomacy. If I just take a minute, in Mahabharata, Lord Krishna had gone to Hastinapur as an envoy on a diplomatic mission to have a discussion, and he played the role of a mediator with intentions of avoiding the war between Pandavas and Kauravas. And later point of time, even when the war took place, the Dharma Yudh, war of righteousness, it was fought with well-defined norms, with highly efficient diplomatic contact between the two warring sides. So hence, I think these were a few thoughts that I wanted to share with all of you. Today's topic to me is a very sensitive and important one, a very interesting one. And I'm sure, considering the fact that we have a very senior panel of educators with us here today, with decades of experience, I look forward to hear from them, their perspective, their takeaway on this very important topic. I thank all of you for giving me a patient hearing. Over to you, Gauri.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Achin, for those wonderful deliberations. Well, ladies and gentlemen, to discuss this topic further, we do have a wonderful panel lined up for you today. But before we start with the panel discussion, a little bit about us here at Notebook. We at Notebook are an edtech platform that creates short videos pertaining to the school curriculum. This means that every topic from every subject of the school syllabus has been converted into a series of short videos that can be used in two different cases. One is when you as a teacher starting out a topic in your classroom. You can play one of these videos as a method of visually introducing the topic to a student. These videos are just 6 to 10 minutes in duration and take up very little of your class time while offering the right kind of material to students to generate curiosity and excitement. The second is when the student is studying at home months later, they have access to the same video on their personal devices, be it a laptop or a smartphone. They can watch the videos over and over again until they get a very clear understanding of the topic that you had taught them. What I am going to do now is play you a mashup of the notebook videos so that you know what they exactly look like.
Minnie is a 5-year-old talkative girl when the story begins. She disturbs and amuses her parents with her constant talking and chattering.
इस कहानी की शुरुआत मिनी नाम की एक छोटी सी बच्ची से होती है। उसकी उम्र 5 वर्ष है।
One day, a newlywed groom of Santhal paid a visit to his mother-in-law's house. His mother-in-law prepared a special dish for him. When mother-in-law served him the delicious dish, he asked what it was and how it has been prepared.
Fishes, meat and eggs are a rich source of protein, which is very necessary for growth. Also, protein is the structural and fundamental functional element of our body and a chief constituent of all cells.
Now, if we compare this equation with ax plus by plus c is equal to 0, we see that a is equal to 3, b is equal to 2 and c is equal to minus 3. If an equation can be expressed in the form of ax plus by plus c is equal to 0, then it is known as a linear equation in two variables.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a small part of some of our videos as you just now saw. We have today connected with over 3,500 schools and have had millions of students and teachers benefit from our videos. If you head over to our website, www.notebook.school, you would find all such videos at your disposal. If you want Notebook in your school, please do get in touch with our sales team at sales@notebook.school. With that, it is now time to introduce the wonderful panelists that we have with us today. We have with us today Mrs. Vidya Muralidharan ma'am, Principal, APS Golconda. Ma'am is an educationalist over 30 years of experience in the academic circle, including 17 plus years of experience as a principal. Ma'am is the recipient of Chief of Army Staff Commendation Card on 2 occasions in 2016 and 2022. She has been selected and recommended by CBSE for the National Award for Teachers for the year 2022-23. Srimati Smriti Irani ma'am, while being HRD Minister, has commended the work of Mrs. Muralidharan by a letter of appreciation. Ma'am, a very good evening and welcome to the panel. Next we have with us Mrs. Gita Diwan ma'am, Director, Happy Day School, Madhya Pradesh. Ma'am founded Happy Day School in 1988 with a motive to fulfill the gap in the available schooling in the district. The school caters to 2,600 students from rural areas and provides subsidized education to a large number of students. Apart from school activities, she remains actively involved with the ladies' wing of the Red Cross and has worked with the government department for malnourished children in the district hospitals. Ma'am is also a member of the Child Welfare Committee, District Guide Commissioner of Scouts, founder of Sahodara School Complexes in Shivpuri. Ma'am, a very good evening and welcome to the panel. We also have with us Dr. Ambika Prasad Gaur, sir, Principal at Hermann School, Varanasi, Uttar Pradesh. With over 30 years of experience in the field of education, sir has worked as PGT, Assistant Professor in Management Institution in Noida, Educational Consultant with Mr. Kailash Satyarthi in Delhi and as principals in different schools. He is presently working as principal at Hermann School, Varanasi as the CPSE Resource Person Training and Nodal Coordinator of G20 Summit meetings in Varanasi. Sir has also authored more than a dozen of books in Hindi as well as in English. Sir, a very good evening and it's a pleasure to have you back in the panel as always. If I can kindly ask my panelists to switch on their cameras and let's start the panel. If I can come to Gita Diwan ma'am first. Ma'am, a very good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Ma'am, my question to you would be how much is the importance of tact and diplomacy in the process of communication, and what are the processes that you follow or teach your kids in your school for mastering this art?
Can you repeat the first part of the question?
Yes, ma'am. What is the importance of tact and diplomacy in the process of communication? And what are the processes that you follow in your school for teaching the kids this perfect
The
art of
importance
communication?
of tact and communication. See, as a leader in our field, we have to take along our team with us. We have to carry our teachers, our staff, our parents, all our students. So, without tact and diplomacy, communication will fail. Communication only possible if we are extremely tactful and extremely polite and sensitive, like esteemed panelists before me have spoken so much about tact and diplomacy. I think they've covered a whole lot of areas in all that. But what I can give a couple of examples in my school in some situations which are a little interesting and little different. Because I belong to Shivpuri, we have started a school in a very small town, rural area, and our parents are our first generation learners, if not second generation learners, but basically coming from a rural and very low income backgrounds. So always dealing with situations where if one doesn't use tact or diplomacy, the children are, I mean, the parents will just run away. So situation where a child came to me a couple of years ago with a card, with a wedding card. I was astounded because the child was in class 12, and I said, "No, I'm sorry, you cannot get leave for this wedding because your examination is. It was in February, and your examinations are your board exams and practicals are around the corner." So he said, "No, ma'am, I have to go." So I was adamant. I said, "Okay, I don't know why you have to go, because what is the, why do you have to have a wedding and why do you have to go now?" So he said, "No, no, ma'am." The teacher who was accompanying him started laughing. So I said, "What is so funny?" So he said, "Ma'am, it is the child's wedding. The child was getting married." So he's a child of class 12. And immediately my tone changed. I could have started shouting. I could have started laughing. I wanted to laugh at him and I wanted to slap him, in fact. But then the poor child, I mean, it is his circumstances, the parents. And then they gave me the reason, the whole lob of why it was important to get married. So it was very tactfully. Immediately I changed my my stance of, I said, "Okay, fine, you're going to take leave." It was astounding, the whole scenario. So there are situations after the other where without tact and one cannot carry the school forward or the children. Our teachers, our team is important, because without them, the teachers, we cannot work. So if I want the results, I have to let go of my relationships. I cannot work with expensive relationships. I cannot get the results. So treat everybody fairly, treat everybody uniformly, but be very, very tactful, because words once said cannot be changed. It's a well-known fact that once you say something to somebody, you cannot. So what the gentleman, Mr. Achin, said in before us, take a deep breath, try and understand, listen to what the other person is trying to say before giving your point of view or your opinion. And of course, the respect of the team is very important. The trust of your team is very important. And it is only with tact and through a diplomatic way that you can earn the trust and the respect of people. These are the key skills that one requires as a leader of your team. Our body language, what are we trying to say and what we are saying without even saying it, our body language, our tone of voice, our volume, all this is important. And of course, listening skills. But again, this is a Herculean task. Very well, easy to say, but very difficult. Herculean task, because so many egos are involved. Egos, even children, their egos are involved. Forget the parents. And of course, our team members, our teachers, our staff, our class 3 staff, our servants, how to carry the team forward without hurting their egos, and that is again diplomacy and tact. Tact and diplomacy ke bina one cannot work. Then another funny incident is when a sad situation where a child who comes from a village and has an epileptic fit in the school. And immediately we recognize it as an epileptic fit. But the child was adamant and the parents were adamant that it was nothing to do with epilepsy because the child had got a sacred thread which had been blessed by their Babaji or their Sant or their Guru, and the child had not been wearing that for a few days and had lost that. So one had to respect again with diplomacy and with tact, tell them that, look, okay, the child is carrying this thread, but the thread is lost. But in spite of that, you have to go back and get your MRI done, get your results done before we can, so we have to listen to all these old-fashioned superstitious coming from the area where I'm coming from and handle them with care and with tact. Another very important thing in my area is our officials, the judiciary, because being a good school in this area, all our police and our IS and our local government officials all come expecting to be treated in a manner, their children should be treated in a manner different to the remaining children. So again, it is with great tact and with great diplomacy that we have to deal with these parents and these officials. Sometimes in my younger days, people used to walk in and it was a babu, but the babu was coming to tell me that the saab was coming. So I didn't know whether it was the saab who had come or the babu had come. So it was, I was telling the babu that aap baithiye, till I realized that actually he had come to inform me that his saab was standing and had to be, escorted into the office. So these are very strange scenarios which along the years we learn and understand and treat everybody without hurting their feelings, yet wanting to, realizing that actually we have to give them a, say, we have to listen to them, and yet they have to do what we feel is good for our institution and or what we realize is good for their children without, them getting affronted. Because these sorts of situations are very sensitive. Especially the officials, you have to be very, very sensitive. Like all the, principals will realize how the whole situation becomes very tense when an IAS officer is stopped at the gate and is expected to walk for about 10 steps. When our Darwan doesn't know that he is an IAS officer because he doesn't have his label written on top of him, on top of his car. So these are again with tact and with my principal and all of us have to follow these rules, and we learn along the way. We understand how important it is. Personal experiences have taught me all these things, and in a small town, the first generation learners, I think it's even more difficult because they are just not able to handle the rules and regulations or what we are trying to do, or understand what we are trying to do for our children, for their children, be it activities or co-curricular or sport. They just don't appreciate, they don't understand. So it is first conveying what we want them to do, what is the ethos of our school with great tact, and then making them appreciate it. And then later on they come back after years and years. Students come back and they tell us that it was necessary where they are today. It is because of the grounding and the foundation of the school. So thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your input. Thank you so much. Moving on to Vidya Muralidharan, ma'am. Ma'am, if you can just kindly unmute yourself. My question to you would be, how much essential is communication in the overall development of the kids, and how does effective communication help in the overall education process as well?
Yeah, I think good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me in this episode of yours. Wonderful being with you all. And I think I heard all the speakers and the panelists and all. I think pretty much, I think everybody has conveyed a lot of stuff. I think, and so let me just convey something which is unique to my school, so probably that would be a little different for everyone to hear. I think, yeah, I am heading Army Public School, Golconda. But the clientele in our school is very different. It's unlike the other schools. So these are all children of soldiers. And these soldiers could be posted in borders in Kargil or in Achin and all. So I think, they stay with their mothers back home. And so I think we have a big responsibility on our shoulders to actually educate the children in various aspects. So here I think we definitely need to have, go an extra mile to make sure that the children are feeling comfortable. I think that is what is our first goal, is to make sure that the children are comfortable in school, because they're always stressed out because the father is not around. I think we, in this way, I think we've built a beautiful culture in the school where the children love to come. I think in my so many years of service, I'm also the founder principal of the school. The school is a welcome place for the child. He likes to come home. It's a second home where he likes to, where the teachers are considered as probably an extended family for him. And the teachers in our schools have a large respect compared to the teachers in the other schools. When we give them some kind of a tip or a guidance or thing, they are revered. I think that is a beautiful thing in our school. See, nevertheless, because they don't stay with one of the parent, I think there's a lot of stress element with them, and therefore creating an atmosphere where they feel safe is very, very important. So therefore, I think we have endeavored to create a learning environment where children can express their opinion freely. I think this is a big area. Otherwise, I think children coming out from stressed out families, if they're not given a platform to speak, or if they're not given a chance to express their feelings, it's going to be a tough call for the child and for us, because we'll not be able to deliver what we want to do. So this is something which we have done in a school, that there is free flow of communication between the student and the teacher. So I think they're feeling very safe and they feel heard. So I think this is where actually we talked about active listening. This is a very, very integral part of our system, where the teachers are tuned to hear out what the children are telling to you, not only probably in their, as far as the classroom transaction or the concepts, but even on the personal front, children do share a lot of things with the teachers, and we go an extra mile to help them out even at home. I think this is a very unique combination of a system where the parent, the student, the school, the teacher all work in sync with each other. And also one more thing, see now here I'll give you a little example. This is one child, last year I think she was in class 12. She lost her father in one of the encounters in Jammu and Kashmir. He's a brilliant child and her performance dropped down so much. So we need to find that extra time with her, invested in her, and I gave her a very big hug. I think it worked so much wonders with her, and she did beautifully in her board examination, and she couldn't even think that she can do this much. She came back to me with her mother to thank me. Ma'am, this one hug of yours made me perform so beautifully in my exam. So I think, so we make an effort to engage in conversation. The conversation we have with our students is, especially I think this is given to the language teachers, that they not only teach the language, but also a lot of social issues are discussed out with the students, where they're free to express their ideas and opinions. So there is a venting out of thoughts and feelings and expression of the student, and you're feeling very, very comfortable. I think also the teacher, I think this is a beautiful trust we have, trusting each other, believing each other. So I think that is a unique combination we have. Here, I think as teachers, I think sometimes during their classrooms, they try to get worked up, they get stressed out. So probably I think what we have told them in the school, yes, if you're going to get stressed out like that, just move out of the classroom for 10 seconds. So your anger or probably your emotions will come under control, and then you come back and then manage your class usual. These are small things which we do tell our teachers. And I think our parents, I think they do need a lot of orientation from the school, as to how to manage their own children. We have a counseling session for the parents to how to handle the children at home. I think this is a very unique part of our school culture, because the children come from families where there are literally only single parents because the fathers are posted in the border. So this is one other element which we do in our school. And also, I think when we talk about inculcating these kind of tact and diplomacy, I think without being self-aware, without being able to manage oneself, it's not possible. So the students, we give them a lot of leadership roles in the school, where the children go and conduct talent hunt in the junior classes. So they come out and tell us, okay, these are the things. So the entire opportunity is given to them. And also, I think one speaker was talking about agree to disagree. I think this is a unique competition which we conduct in a school called the Ethics Ball. This is a competition which is conducted all over India, where I think different topics are discussed, and they agree to disagree. Of course, they put across their point, and they know how to put across their point without probably hurting the sentiments of the other group. So these are some inherent things which we have in our school, and of course, because we believe in unity in diversity, because we have children from all across the country, and because it is an inherent matrix in the school, they know to respect the other cultures, the others. They celebrate all festivals. So acceptance is very much there. And that's about it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for this wonderful input. Moving on to our next panelist, Dr. Ambika Prasad, sir. Sir, you can unmute yourself and switch on the camera, please.
Yes, Gaguri, I'm here. Yeah.
Yes. Sir, if you can just deliberate a little bit about on the topic about how important is the role of tact and diplomacy in the art of communication, and also how this effective communication helps us to build our children into responsible citizens.
Okay, Gaguri, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me, first of all. Thank you, Achin and the team. And of course, I think it's the 6th or 7th time that I'm having my panel discussion, on this virtual platform, along with you, Gaguri, the main vital element of this particular group or this particular discussion. I'm sorry, a little bit, maybe I'm traveling right now. Maybe there will be some hiccup, but please bear with me. Gaguri, the question that you've asked me about what are the various tracks and what are the various techniques? I mean, I think that was your question. What are being applied in my organization?
Yes.
For the children.
Yes, particularly in schools, what do we follow, and also
Gaguri,
how
I'll
can
be
we teach
starting,
them
this one with 2-3 incidences. What has happened? What have happened, in the various schools? I have served many schools so far. As a principal also, I have served 3-4 schools. So I'm just, clubbing all the experience together, and then there are 2-3 stories. Once one girl came to me crying to my office, and complain about the teacher, mathematics teacher. That sir, I just calmed down the child. I asked her, "Beta, you be silent first of all." And then, you know, when she was pacified, then she told me that, sir, the mathematics teacher, he told me that तुम लड़की हो, लड़की की तरह रहो. I mean, you know, all the boys are asking some questions, and some boys may be creating some mischief, and this girl must have also told something. So at that particular point, the teacher lost his control and said to this girl like this, that ladki ho, ladki ki tarah raho. Well, obviously, this is one of the incidents. The other time, I have got another complaint about my own vice principal from a boy. The boy was, you know, dark in color, dark complexion boy. थोड़ा सा सांवले रंग का लड़का था, काले रंग का बल्कि मैं कहूँगा. सांवला और काले में भी थोड़ा सा डिफरेंस होता है. Sorry. So the vice principal said, actually he was a child was notorious actually. I'm sorry to use that word because at times, you know, the children, particularly of 9, 10th, 11th, 12th classes, they create, you know, some sort of problem for the teachers also and for the other friends also, for their own friends also. So this child was doing, you know, somewhat sort of mischief and all, and every time the child was being produced before the vice principals came in. Okay, so the vice principal told him once that भगवान ने तुमको तो वैसे ही तुम्हारा मुंह काला करके भेजा हुआ है, तो तुम थोड़ा तमीज से रहो. That other example, you know, मैं बताना चाह रहा हूँ कि कितना hurting होता है और कैसे हम लोग with the teachers we are unable to communicate at times. हम लोग भी सही ढंग से communicate नहीं करते. ये दो एग्जांपल है. एक और एग्जांपल है, a lady teacher. I complain about a lady teacher. Told me कि तुम्हारे पापा तो दूध बेचते हैं, तुम भी क्या दूध ही बेचोगे? Right. His father was a milkman. The boy's father was a milkman, a prominent milkman, of course. You know, I have got that incident happened in this school only. It's in the outskirts of the city, Varanasi, around 27 kilometers away from the main city. And there, you know, the area is inhabited by the Yadavas, and they are very good, very, very rich people, and they are the milk sellers. And that was the comment by a lady teacher to that particular student, right? Now, in case if I add up or I sum up these three incidences, so I must say that we, the teachers, we, the educators, we, the who have got the responsibility of, or who are shouldering the burden of creating the future of these young generations, we are not the good communicators. We want to speak out. We want to speak out every time. अपनी बात हम करना चाहते हैं बार-बार, और सुनना नहीं चाहते हैं. और जब बात करते हैं तो हम दूसरे बच्चे के साथ में कोई empathy रखते ही नहीं थे. Empathy is a very big word. Empathy, right? So, you know, when you are keeping yourself in front of the person, or you are keeping yourself in place of the person whom you are communicating, तो फिर पता चलेगा आपको कि भाई कैसे होगा, मैं जो शब्द बोल रहा हूँ इसका क्या इस पे असर पड़ेगा बच्चे पे. हम ये बहुत कम जानते हैं, अपनी बात रखना चाहते हैं, बोलना चाहते हैं, लेकिन सुनना भी नहीं चाहते हैं. और दूसरा एम्पैथेटिक है ही नहीं. ओके, ये मैं ब्लेम कर रहा हूँ अपने आप को, विद द टीचर्स कम्युनिटी, राइट. आपको मालूम है इंसिडेंट में अभी इन्होंने अचिन ने भी एक एग्जांपल दिया था महाभारत से. तो महाभारत से एक कोटेशन है कि आप पूरी जो महाभारत हुई है वो सिर्फ एक द्रौपदी के एक ही स्टेटमेंट पे हुई है कि अंधे का पुत्र अंधा. अंधे का पुत्र, जब वो मैदानों का बनाया हुआ जो रंग महल था इंद्रप्रस्थ में, तो जहाँ पे जल की जगह पे थल और थल की जगह पे जल का आभास हो रहा था कि जहाँ पे पानी है वहां पे लग रहा है जमीन है, और जहाँ पे जमीन थी वहां पे लग रहा है, इस तरह से लग रहा था जल की जगह पे थल, थल की जगह पे जल. और दुर्योधन जो है जब अपने कपड़े समेटता है, उसको लगता है कि पानी है, लेकिन वहां पे जो है जमीन थी. और दूसरी जगह पे जहाँ पे दुर्योधन समझ रहा है कि जमीन है, तो वहां पे ऐसे ही चल रहा है और सीधे उस पानी के गड्ढे में गिर गया. तो द्रौपदी जो है ऊपर से देख रही थी, उसने कहा कि अंधे का पुत्र अंधा होता है. और उसका रिजल्ट जो है आपने देखा, यू नो, द एंटायर क्लैन, उनका पूरा का पूरा जो डायनेस्टी थी, पूरा जो क्लैन था, वो खत्म हुआ. इसके अलावा millions of people, their lives are also lost. उनका अपना खानदान, अपना family disputes are ठीक है, वो तो they were punished, they were penalized, but then along with that dynasty, millions of other people also died. They also lost their life. So just because of one statement by Draupadi. और कहा भी गया है कि सत्यम ब्रूयात प्रियम ब्रूयात न ब्रूयात सत्यम अप्रिय, मींस आप सत्य बोलो, प्रिय बोलो, लेकिन जो अप्रिय लगने वाला सत्य वो नहीं बोलना चाहिए, हमको कोशिश करनी चाहिए. So there all your diplomacy, all your tacts, they come up, and all your experience as a teacher, all your experience as a human being, all your experience as an aged person, or all your experience as a good human being, it comes up. So मैं फिर दोबारा उन्हीं इंसिडेंट पे जाता हूं जो मैंने आपको बताया, 3 जो इंसिडेंट बताया अपने लाइफ में, अपने एजुकेशन फील्ड में एज ए प्रिंसिपल. तो वहां पे द टीचर शुड हैव टैकल्ड फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल. जो टीचर बोला मैथमेटिक्स टीचर बच्ची को कि तुम लड़की हो, लड़की की तरह रहो, तो दैट वाज a sort of some sort of shocking statement by the teacher for that girl. लड़की है तो हम तो बार बार कहते हैं ना कि भाई we have to be gender sensitive also, and we should be gender neutral, we should never be biased. तो लड़कियां हैं तो इसका मतलब कि लड़की शरारत थोड़ा हल्का, लड़की ने कुछ मिसचीफ कर दिया तो इसका मतलब ये थोड़ी कि हम उसे इस तरह से कमेंट करेंगे. I called that teacher, I counseled the teacher also, the girl was also counseled properly, and then in the next day in the assembly I told everybody, all the teachers I requested, and all the students also I requested कि देखो बेटा कि तुमको इतना बुरा लगा जब टीचर ने बोला, आप लोग भी अपनी पापा मम्मी को कभी-कभी बोल देते हैं, because I keep on getting the complaint from the parents also that ये बच्चे जो है हमें कुछ नहीं समझते हैं, ये बच्चे घर में आके झगड़ते हैं. तो मैंने कहा कि तुम्हारे पेरेंट्स का भी बहुत सारा कंप्लेन आता है तुम्हारे खिलाफ, आपको भी समझना चाहिए कि एक शब्द जो है कितना बुरा लग जाता है. और कहते हैं ना कि शब्दों के बाण जो है, जो शब्द का जो घाव होता है वो भरता नहीं है. तलवार का घाव तो भर भी जाएगा, लेकिन शब्द का घाव उसे भरने में बहुत समय लगता है, तो भरता ही नहीं कभी. वो तो आपकी साइके में जो है डीप रूटेड हो जाता है. So we have to take care of that. Another one जो मेरे वाइस प्रिंसिपल खुद जो बोले बच्चे को कि तुम्हें तो पहले से जो है your face has been blackened by the Almighty, and you should try avoid doing the mischief. So that was again totally uncalled for, totally wrong statement by a person who has been given the authority. I issued a so-called notice to that teacher, that vice principal, and of course he promised that he will never say all these things again. बहुत गंदा statement है. Means directly you are attacking on the complexion of a boy, and that's true. Then anyway we pacified that thing. Boy was called several times in front of the vice principal. Then I asked after 1 month, what is your progress now? Is the vice principal again telling you something? So after that he said no sir, he's loving like a father loves me, like my father loves me, he is loving me. The ये बच्चा भी जो था जो बहुत मिससीव करता था lives also. We don't have any right to make any comment on the complexion of anybody, right? And the final one, that about your father is a milkman, and you will also be selling the milk if you will not study well, right? See, that teacher said some perfectly all right that, well, your father is a milkman, and according to the teacher, milkman may be a lowly job, though I don't consider that as a lowly job. He was a rich person, he was a milkman. It doesn't mean that he was doing anything unholy work or anything which was demeaning. But then truth was there. Of course the father was a milkman, but then it was not proper on the part of the teacher to say that your father is a milkman, and if you don't study you will also become a milkman. So anyway, that counsel was also done. So to sum up the things, Gagori, I will once again emphasize on that we should be more tactful, more diplomatic, and please remember, once we don't respect the others, once we say anything and everything that comes in our thought or whatever we want to say, if without keeping in mind that what impact this thing will have on the other's psyche, so obviously we will never be successful. All the people of the world, those who are really successful, all successful people of the world, they have been, very good at communication. They have always been good communication. You see the present day leadership also. All the big leaders in our country also, or even foreign countries, they are the good statesmen, and they see the things, they talk to the people very tactfully. And even a slightest of, there's a slip of tongue, that is definitely going to make their career or mar their career. एक incident थोड़ा सा बता देता हूँ finally, and then I'll stop. When the late Prime Minister, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, was in saddle, so once, somebody asked him, किसी ने पूछा, जब वो Prime Minister नए बने थे, तो किसी पत्रकार ने पूछा कि राजीव जी, do you have got any, what is your opinion about emergency? इंदिरा गांधी जी ने इमरजेंसी लगाई थी देश पे, आपको इतना बहुमत मिला है, बहुत ज्यादा था ना, ऐसा बहुमत तो किसी को मिला नहीं अभी तक, किसी भी प्राइम मिनिस्टर को, जैसे राजीव गांधी जी को मिला था 1984 में, after the death of his mother, Mrs. Indira Gandhi. So anyway, he answered, उनका simple answer था राजीव गांधी का कि इमरजेंसी लगाने की जरूरत पड़ेगी तो लगाएंगे, अगर जरूरत हुई तो लगाएंगे. And so much of the whole was made out of that statement. कई दिन तक जो है टीवी डिबेट्स में रहा कि ये तो इनका मेंटालिटी वही है जैसे इनकी मदर का था, इमरजेंसी, ये तो इमरजेंसी लगाएंगे. Whereas he did not say that इमरजेंसी लगाएंगे, he said कि अगर जरूरत पड़ेगी तो लगाएंगे. And obviously हर प्राइम मिनिस्टर को या हर एक जो आपका रूलर है, एक जो मतलब देख रहा है आपकी कंट्री के समय, whether the president or the prime minister, जिस तरह के भी आपका सिस्टम है, तो उसके अनुसार अगर इमरजेंसी लगानी पड़ेगी तो लगाएंगे. That statement was perfectly all right, but that was a little bit not diplomatic. थोड़ा सा diplomacy इसमें मिस कर रही थी. He should have said something else, or he should have said that particular statement, in some other tone, या किसी और दूसरे स्टाइल से बोलते हैं, तो वहीं पे diplomatically थोड़ा सा चूक गई. तो कभी-कभी ये चीजें बोल देने में कभी हमको देखना होता है कि we have to be a little bit more diplomatic and more tactful, and particularly with the young generation. अभी तो हमारे बच्चे भी बोल देते हैं ना हमको, अरे पापा आपको तो कुछ नहीं आता, बोल देते हैं ना, बच्चे भी बोलते हैं हमको कि आपको कुछ नहीं आता. Whenever we tell them कि बेटा ये जरा ये मेरा ये particularly in case of this आपको जो है कुछ कराना हो, कुछ डाउनलोड करना है, कुछ अपलोड करना होगा, तो they are smarter than us, and then there's comment is कि पापा आपको कुछ नहीं आता. But that doesn't mean that we should politely tell them, make them understand. So anyway, that is the work of the teachers as well as the parents. We make sure that so finally Kabir Das ji का होता ना दोहा सुना.
Okay, I think we will take this from here. So you're not audible. Yes. Sir, you're not audible properly, sir.
ये बहुत अमूल्य रत्न है. Yes. Okay, come on my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Yes, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Gita, Diwan ma'am, Vidya, Muralidharan ma'am, and Ambika, Prasad sir. Thank you, three of us, so very much for attending the panel today. It was absolute pleasure from my part to host three of you. Calling back Achin for the vote of thanks, please.
I think really wonderful session, very seamless. First of all, I thank our esteemed panelists. Burrett sir, thank you for giving us a great start. And I think the example of how you handled an exit very maturely, that really stays with us. A win-win situation.
Thank you.
Really, very inspirational and food for thought. I'm sure it's a learning for everybody who attended this session. Thank you, sir. Gita, Diwan ma'am, I think you made some very important points, including to taking the team along with you, taking all stakeholders along with you, and also managing expectations, be it an official visit, be it anything, managing expectation. And I think managing expectation tactfully, that indeed is very challenging. We all understand that. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for sharing your experience.
Thank you, sir.
Our pleasure. Vidya Muralidharan, ma'am, I think thank you for being part of the session. And I think you also made some very important points, very sensitive points. We were all very touched to hear how a child who lost her father in Jammu and Kashmir, how you inspired her with a big hug and extra time, and the fact that she came out of the exams with flying colors. That was very inspiring, ma'am. Very touching. I think things like this really, really stays with us. And that's the spirit of the evening. Thank you, ma'am. And also, I think you also made another very important point about trust and belief. Trust and belief amongst all stakeholders, be it esteemed educators, be it parents, taking everybody along in the journey, which of course is very important. Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you.
Dr. Ambika Prasad, thank you, sir. I think really an honor to host you. And whenever you're here, we do gain from your wisdom, from your thought, from your wit. And I think you give some very sensitive examples of how certain communications were made in a way which could have been handled better. So at times, definitely not in the most desirable fashion. And we all agree with you. And also, I think you mentioned words which is very important: empathy, maturity, sensitivity. These indeed are the cornerstones, pillars, very important. And as educators, naturally, as nation builders, I think role is very important, because if you look at things from a child's perspective, apart from parents, of course, be it in next port of call or in many situations, first port of call are educators. So I think that responsibility is huge. So, sir, you made some very important points. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I thank all of you for taking your time out today evening. And I'm sure members of our esteemed audience also stands to gain from your collective wisdom. Thank you. Take care and goodbye. We look forward to host you in our next sessions. Thank you, sir.